What up, guys? It's Bartle Boss here, and today, welcome back to Bartle Picks, where I talk about my favorite things in the horror, wrestling, and Juggalo communities. Today, I'm going to be talking about something I very much am into, which is books, and not just any books, books with a horror nature or that have some sort of horror elements to them. So, let's just get it started. The first book I have today for you guys is Odd Thomas by Dean Koontz. Now this is a great book about a 20-year-old fry cook who he has a special gift where he can see the dead, and the dead usually come to him helping look for some sort of retribution for their death. But another one of his powers, and really what this book is about, is he can see these shadow creatures sometimes that follow people or events that usually lead to some sort of great tragedy. And it starts off one day he's on his way to work, or I believe he's at work, and a guy comes in and he is just swarming with these things, and he usually only sees one or two. So this guy must be something wrong with this guy, and it must be leading to some sort of massacre or big event. So Odd follows this guy around trying to prevent whatever catastrophe could be happening. It's a really cool book. There's a lot of weird, ghosty things, some science fiction. The ending also just great ending. I don't want to give anything away, but absolute phenomenal ending to that book. Next up, I have the Six Gun Turret. This is more of a fantasy book. It's by R.S. Belcher. I'm sorry, the first one was by Dean Koontz. This is by R.S. Belcher. Now, this book is more of fantasy meets Western, but it also very much has a lot of horror elements to it. There's a lot of things with cryptids, dark magic, and there's the bad beast or creature, if you will, is more of a body snatcher style creature. Um, but it jumps around between characters. There's some undead stuff. There's a kid who has a magical eye that lets him see the dead and talk to the dead. Very much a good, well-rounded book if you like fantasy or horror. Lots of different things. But next up, I have one of my personal favorites, which is called Meddling Kids by Edgar Cantero. Now, this, if you're a Scooby Doo fan, you're gonna love this, or you're gonna hate it. It's kind of a dark parallel universe to Scooby Doo, where obviously you know who the characters are referencing, but they have their names changed. But it's these kids are in a group that investigates creepy stuff, and their last mission kind of goes awry, and they end up witnessing like real like lizard they're like amphibian creatures. um but now it cuts to them 20 something years later, and they're now all adults and all have some sort of like deep dark trauma from this event, and they end up going back to the house, and they encounter the Necronomicon, and there's a Cthulhu monster, there's a Lovecraftian monster, and there's amphibian monsters, and there's even like a weird descent like scene where they're crawling around in dark tight tunnels under the ground. So a lot of great throwbacks to not only the cartoons but like Lovecraftian, a lot of Lovecraftian stuff, a lot of general horror. So really great read. Next up, at book number 4, I have The Girl with All the Gifts, and this is by M.R. Carey. Now, this is pretty much a zombie book flipped on its head. It's about it starts off with a bunch of these kids in this weird underground facility where they're being strapped to wheelchairs and taken to classrooms, and their mouths are blocked off, and you don't really get it at first, and then you find out you're in like a post zombie apocalypse, and that these kids are somewhat zombie, but they can think for themselves, and but they still have the cravings and the ability to like want to eat people, so they can't like think for themselves around blood and things. But the facility gets overrun by zombies, and the the little girl that's the main character and the teachers and some military have to make their way back to like a safe haven. So they have to go across all this zombie infested territory to get back. It's a really great zombie book that doesn't quite fit the mold of a lot of the other zombie books. So I really recommend that read. And last up, here is Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer. Now, this book blew my mind. It's very like suspense thriller, high sci-fi, where you're generally uneased during the entire read, and you don't quite fully get the answers you want at the end, nor do you get answers at all. It's actually one of three in the Southern Reach trilogy, and it takes place. There's like a magic. There's like this weird sciencey bubble that kind of pops up, and people can go through it, and it takes them almost to a different environment, and it's just like a whole bunch of different environments mashed together, and there's like a creepy living tower. There's all kinds of things that are really hard to explain, but they keep sending scientists into this bubble and they don't come back. And then the 12th, I believe it's the 11th expedition they send in, and yeah, the 11th, they send them in, and they think that they disappear just like the rest of them, and then all of a sudden they show up not knowing who they are at like loved ones' houses and stuff, and then very shortly afterward they all die of some weird sort of cancer. So they send another group in, and that's where the book starts, where you're going in with the 12th expedition, and you get to see around in the bubble, and it's just generally one of those books where you read it and you're on edge the entire time. Very good book if you want to mess with your brain. Highly recommend that book. But those are my 5 picks for my horror themed books. If you were interested in any of them and you want to read them yourselves, I do have links in the description to the to Amazon where you can pick them up. Also, if you like what we're doing here, you want more Bartle's picks, you even have suggestions, write them down in the comments below. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss anything we drop. And thanks for watching.
Perch atop a building, rifle firmly grasped up in my hands, looking through the eyesight, surveying the land. All I see is zombies, so I keep busting off rounds. One shot, one kill, so many corpses hit the ground. Gaze at the horizon, there was still a lot left. But then I saw a sight, and it was quick to take away my breath.